Where do you feel like the biggest gap is between true strategy in digital marketing, which is often thinking outside the box, versus the AI strategies that are implementing standard best practices?
We've been posting a lot on social media about this, just talking about how to use, it's just a tool, and it's powerful, but in the wrong hands, you're just going to get a lot of garbage. It's not going to be as good because it's not from a standpoint of strategy.
AI's really forced us to take a new look at SEO and to really try and unpack what that means. Can we rank not just for search engines, but for AI engines as well? And so we've been pouring ourselves into the AI SEO.
I think the thought process is allow it to expound on the thought, do not let it begin your thought. Because if it begins your thought, then you got recycled trash, right? Then it's garbage in, garbage out.
Welcome to another episode of SEO On-Air. Got three great guests with us today. We're going to get a chance to meet them and learn a little bit about them before we dive into the questions. Just wanted to make sure we talk about this. This podcast is brought to you by Stan Ventures. My name is Koa Kauwe. I'm the host. We're going to learn about these three guests now, though, so we can figure out exactly who we're talking about. Wendell, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and your agency.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I was first. So my name is Wendell Jordan. I'm the owner of Jordan Marketing Consultants. We are solely an SEO agency based out in Houston, Texas. Our ideal clients are local businesses who are looking to improve their digital footprint.
Appreciate you being here. Local is always fun to have on the podcast, actually, because the perspectives are a lot different than some of the agencies that are going national. So it's fun to have the contrast there. Thanks for being here, Wendell. Kevin, we'll go with you next, and Angie, you'll be last, but it's nothing personal, okay?
Yeah, Kevin Brown Design. I'm in my 11th year. Primarily, we do websites and then sell ancillary services, one of them being SEO, also social media and content marketing. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, appreciate you being here. It'll be, again, there's another interesting perspective, full SEO and mainly website development. So that's cool. Good. We're going to have sometimes I see that battle between agencies where the web developer says the SEO guy did it wrong and then vice versa. So that'll be a fun one to have on. Andrew, please.
I'm Andrew Husted, owner of Full Spectrum Marketing in Akron, Ohio. I guess I can kind of meet in the middle here. We're a full service agency, so we have a digital marketing team, we have a web development team. Actually, myself, I'm a trained web developer. It's kind of how I started my marketing journey. But we do everything from branding, digital marketing, advertising, social media, content development, SEO, all that stuff.
So we'll move into the first question, guys. The first question is about agency models and how they're evolving. You guys have all had some experience with your own agencies changing the strategies that they have implemented on their own. So I want to ask this question just to hear a little bit about your experiences in the market. You've made intentional choices about how your agency is structured, whether it's local, websites, or a combination of all of them. What have you changed from previous models? There's always a first iteration, a second iteration of the marketing agency. Tell us a little bit about how you've expanded from where you first were as an agency to where you are today.
Well, we actually measure the iterations of FSM. So we're working on FSM 6.0 here, actually. So we grew from a really small team of 4 people, and now we're a team of 25. And that growth is kind of what forces the agency to evolve. I think smaller agencies, you guys might agree, you work with a bunch of experts who do the work. So you have a small team, everybody kind of has their lane, everybody can execute on a certain thing. But as you grow, you start to take on more clients, you start to have capacity issues with that. I was a web developer, I can't build a website for every single client because you get too many of those and it's more than one guy can handle. So the growth inflection point for us really became how can we actually get a management structure in place that can then lead all of our different service teams effectively, not necessarily being the doers, but elevating their career to a place where they can be the leaders of that domain. And going from those people being the doers to those people being the managers is definitely one of the hardest things we had to overcome as an agency. Thankfully, we're on the other side of that now. So things are more comfortable. They're leading in the right ways. They have really strong teams behind them. But the growth to get there is really, it can be painful at times. So yeah, that's kind of our journey.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question on that because I'm curious about this. This comes up pretty often in the podcast where we have this contrast of small agencies to larger agencies, and the small agencies will fight that the quality of the work that larger agencies produce just cannot compete with the flexibility and the speed that a small agency can move at. How have you been able to navigate moving through the different iterations of your company to point to version 6? How have you been able to maintain, or do you feel like you've even maintained the same quality that a tiny agency with speed can produce?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a struggle because the experts doing the work are now the experts overseeing the work, not necessarily executing, right? And that can get them out of the kind of the high level of sophistication that an agency would typically provide. I do maintain we are by far a more sophisticated agency in the services we provide than we have ever been with a larger team. And it's been quite a struggle to get there. But having those experts kind of in that management role for each of their domains, like I said, having them oversee the work via very specific processes and very specific like cycles of review and iteration, coaching, training, investigating new things like AI techniques or like Cursor as a development tool, things like that, always elevating kind of what the rest of the team is doing. So they're kind of bringing everybody along to this place of sophistication. And then having the broader team really makes us able to deliver higher volumes of work in less time. So that's been really great for us in a number of ways. But
I like it. I think I might actually have Wendell and Kevin touch on this too, because I'm thinking about the diversity that you're able to get with that perspective. Like if you have a lot of good people looking at something, they're going to see more of the holes than one really good person might have seen by themselves. So seeing as we have two people that have kind of more isolated their business to focus on one thing really well, I want to hear how they've how have you built out your agency to focus on websites really well and then it flood into good SEO? And Wendell, the opposite with how you built out your company for focusing on primarily SEO. Let's kind of take a view of how you guys have approached it.
Sure, I'll take a swing at that. So my background, 14 years, I was a web designer for two agencies. One was about 20 people, the other one was about 45 people. They both failed, early 2000s, mid 2000s. And, just having been through that experience, just seeing how that model worked, maybe the start of my business was a bit reactionary, not wanting to have the overhead that they had and being able to be flexible and nimble and create something that I could move quickly and find experts in specific areas and team up with them. Started out with local people that I knew in the industry, and then expanded from there, just kind of more international talent and looking. It took a long time to really find good people, honestly. But it just kind of developed organically, and it's how I enjoyed working with people, having the flexibility to have my own space, my own decisions, and kind of creating that culture. And so I learned a lot through that. Talking about culture, working with somebody that's in India or even in the United States, just trying to learn and teach them what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and getting that true adoption from them, that belief that this is what we do and what our expectations are. So it just took a lot of work to do that. We're finally in a really good spot. In the last 5 years, we've really sharpened that whole tool set.
Wendell, how have you? Yeah, I could jump in.
Yes, sir. So I actually have a couple of questions for both of you because you mentioned India. And one of the things that I know I talk to other agency owners about and also have experienced myself are, Andrew, is everyone on your team stateside, or do you have some overseas folks as well?
yeah, not only are they stateside, but they're all local. They're on site. I don't know if you can see people wandering around through the glass window back here, but yeah, they're all here with a hybrid and a remote schedule.
And then Kevin, are you still using people overseas?
I am. It took me a long time to find the right team. Yeah, it did. I swore I would never do it, but I know the founder and I'm friends with the CEO. So that helps. That helps a lot because I understand their culture.
So to kind of touch on both things that we talked about so far. So our iterations have come from being full service, right? Well, actually, it comes from having a partner in a different agency. We parted ways, started my own journey, decided that full service was the only thing I understood. I was actually having this conversation yesterday with an agency partner. My first client, my first like big client, was paying maybe $2,500 a month for social media management. Right? I hated every minute of it. I would never do it again. But it was really good money at the time. Right? And through the course of the pandemic, offering more time and just realizing all the things that we just didn't enjoy, we transitioned into an SEO agency. So all of this getting to this point and then being specifically local, I think came from just the experiences of always shopping local, right? Like I've always been a local guy. So like I enjoy quite a few local things, right? Some of the services that we utilize we pay a little bit more for them, but they're locally owned, right? So I think that always being at the back of my mind is the reason why we are local centric, because we do more traditional campaigns that are national or regional. But the thing I talk about the most is local SEO, especially because of all the networking. But the other part of that is, and again, to talk about the question I asked you guys, my current, we're a small team, right? So I think I'm the smallest. I don't know, Kevin, how many people do you have on your team?
It's just me, and I work with contractors.
Okay, cool. So you and I are in a similar boat, right? So I have one other person on my team who does the SEO work, who I just brought back on. But the hardest part for us was finding people who could fit the culture of one, right? Because when you go from yourself to somebody else coming along with you, it's kind of hard to get them to understand, because this is our baby, right? How do you get them to have the same passion and everything else? We've tried overseas. I don't like the time difference, right? And I also don't like the concept of they'll work on our time, right? So in most cases, it's a 12-hour or more difference. So it's 11 o'clock at night, and they've had daytime work, right? It to me, it always ends up becoming an imbalance. I haven't found it, but I don't look for it anymore. I was fortunate enough to where my SEO moved from the Philippines to Canada, so now we only have an hour time difference. So it's actually worked out perfect.
So one thing is really interesting about this is there is another, like you guys have, Kevin and Wendell, you guys have both focused on like the operational costs of your business. Like you're running with a low overhead. It allows you to be profitable and function in a different way. Andrew, that's something that I've been seeing as a trend across the industry, all across North America. It seems like there's either a really hyper focus on we're so elite in our SEO work that we keep it all US and we're going to charge you more, but you're going to get more out of this. And then there's the companies that are like, to stay competitive, we have to reduce our costs. We just have to make sure there's quality to it. You clearly are going to have more operating costs. You have an office. I do see people walking around in the background. I'm glad they're there working, and it's fun to have a culture of that. How do you feel like you've been able to maintain that competitiveness with companies that are massively reducing their operating costs by outsourcing labor overseas?
Well, we always say we're not the cheapest agency, but we're not the most expensive either. So that gives us a good middle ground starting point. But we find that there's a narrative that resonates with a lot of people lately, where kind of like Wendell was saying, staying local is kind of important, resonating with people. So when we can say all of our team members are on site, you'll get to meet them in person, like that's something that nearly every other agency we compete with here, they can't say the same thing. So that gives us a bit of an edge. People, they like meeting in person. They like coming to our offices. They like hanging out. It's kind of old school, but I'm seeing it come back, because that's kind of where we were 10 years ago. Is like everything was in person. We're going to drive out there. COVID hit, obviously. Everything went remote. And we're seeing lately, I think people are starting to get tired of it, and they want that in person. Collaboration, shooting the breeze, getting to know people, but also like getting to work on stuff together and make fun deliverables and have some success with it together. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, but that's kind of the narrative that we go with, that kind of makes people go, oh, yeah, I think working with you guys could be more interesting.
I I think that's exactly answering my question. And Wendell and Kevin, I see you guys shaking your head, so I know you're in agreement to a certain extent. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, just having worked in that environment, that is one of the things I miss is the collaborative environment, working with other people, just walking over to someone's office and having a conversation about a client or about a project or something. Yeah, I don't really have that. I mean, I have friends locally that I talk to that have started their own businesses and doing their own things. So there is some collaboration there, but not on specific projects. So, I'm a bit siloed in that way. So a lot of it for me is really building that relationship first with the client and just establishing those expectations with them and understanding how I work. I'm very, very transparent with how I work. They know right up front who I'm working with. I'll even introduce them on calls, and we'll just have that discussion. So I think a lot of clients are completely fine. There are some that are like, I just want to work with somebody that I can sit at a coffee shop and talk to and that sort of thing. And I understand that. We're not for everybody. It's not the model that fits everybody's needs. So we understand that going in, but it starts with the relationship first.
I have a question maybe for you guys, more on the smaller team side. Do you ever find that the size of the business you're talking to cares more or less about the size of your organization?
For us, we go after businesses that I think can appreciate a smaller agency, right? So like similar to your conversation, a lot of our clients, especially over the last year or so, because I've made a more concerted effort, have been local, right? So our local is nationally local, right? So we can do local SEO anywhere. But in the Houston area, a lot of our conversations are local. The businesses that we talk to understand that they are not getting a 40, 50 person agency, right? They also know that they'll never be transferred to customer service. They'll likely be talking to me 99% of the time. So for us, it is targeted for us to deal with clients who can afford us, but also understand that we are a small agency. So like, if you want big, you can go big, but we're not that. Like that's a part of our transparency.
It's like the high touch narrative. Like you'll get a lot more time and attention from the.
Yeah, right. Exactly. One thing I want to mention though, right? So the irony in talking about like the getting back to in person and even local. The meeting I had yesterday was in person, and I was telling them I don't meet people in person really ever, right? Like it's almost. It's a part of. I think it's also a part of our brand, right? Like I have no problem meeting in a wider frame, right? Like networking and stuff, but it takes away from our ability to touch people if I got to go to 9 meetings, right? So I can appreciate the fact that part of your conversation is getting to work together in a space where y'all are together actually physically, because for us, like. I'm trying to stay away from it at all costs. I could care less about meeting in person.
I think there are some businesses that want that kind of attention. They want to be able to sit in a boardroom and just have that experience, and maybe that's what they know. And I didn't get a large project because of the way my business is set up. It's not because of necessarily who I am, but because they've had bad experiences in the past, and they lost touch with that company, and so it was just really frustrating to them. So I didn't even have a shot, really. No matter how good my argument was, it's just like, we just don't want to risk that experience again. But yet on the other side, I've had great experiences with very large projects, and everything went perfectly, and they were very happy, and I'm still a client today.
I think that previous agency head trash is something we probably all deal with on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it can work in our favor. It could also, to your point, work against us.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've all seen some agencies maybe go. They're saying goodbye to the agency business model, right? Like your customers are leaving someone that maybe went out of business or shut things down or whatever else goes on. I don't like using the narrative of SEO is dead because I think it's wrong, but there's the narrative with customers that SEO isn't what it used to be. And even within agencies, like, man, if I was doing SEO 10 years ago, I was killing it, crushing everything, and now it's just different. So when clients are saying, and this ties back to the trust aspect that I feel like I'm feeling between like the local conversations and meeting people in person and those discussions. But when clients are saying that SEO isn't what it used to be, what do you think they're actually reacting to in the changes that we've felt over the industry over the last couple of years?
I would say, so the answer is yes, right? SEO isn't what it used to be, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the expectation has to be measured differently. I had a client, 'cause he's no longer a client now, but he used to do his own SEO work, right? Like 20, 25 years ago. And that was back when, right? 'Cause we're all old enough to remember that internet. That was back when you would have the same color font with all your keywords at the bottom of a page, right? And you could pay for spam farms and all other stuff, right? So those things are all dead and gone, which means SEO is not what it used to be. You actually have to work now, right? You actually have to think about what your reader really wants to understand. Again, for us with local, it's understanding locality. Something that came to mind when we talk about just like the overall conversation we've had to this point. I think one of the things that's really important, probably for all of us, right? Because we're all relatively small. I would even argue, Andrew, you're a smaller agency, right? Like, and because of the way you're having the conversation, being able to tell someone that you understand Akron or understand the cities around Akron means something to them, right? So that's the same context that we take when we're talking about SEO, especially local SEO, right? Houston is huge. There are so many cities within Houston, and sometimes the conversation is understanding. There's a strip over by Johnson Space Center where there are literally like 5 towns, right? And you have to be able to understand that as an SEO. You didn't have to understand that maybe 20 years ago. So I would argue, yes, I wouldn't disagree at all. I would say, yes, absolutely, SEO has changed, but I think it's for the betterment of not only the user, but for the business, because now you're no longer competing with the spammy person who doesn't really know what they're doing and is just getting lucky.
Yeah, I guess my take on SEO is that it's changing quite rapidly right now, as kind of we've observed over the last year with some of the efforts that we've been doing for our clients. There has been a bit of a decline in click-throughs and traffic overall, and I think that's according to our research, primarily because of the AI overviews that are happening. A lot of our searches are going over to conversational AIs like ChatGPT, and people are getting their answer from the Gemini results at the top, and they're not going even down as far as the sponsored ads, let alone the organic links. And so AI's really like forced us to take a new look at SEO and to really try and unpack what that means. Can we rank not just for search engines, but for AI engines as well? And so we've been like pouring ourselves into the AI SEO side of things to see, can we actually gain visibility with AI conversations that are relevant to the businesses that we're servicing. And that's been a really cool journey. Everybody knows it's so new, but we've had some good success with it so far. And so that's kind of helped us kind of infuse a lot of our SEO efforts to make them not only more exciting again, because clients are like, AI, ooh, I'm interested now, but also it helps us be more dynamic overall with the type of work we're doing for our clients.
So I have a question here that is forming. I hope this comes out coherent. If a website was dead, I might say that there's zero traffic to a website and it's dead. With SEO, the term SEO is dead is being used pretty regularly, and I think I just ignored it because I don't believe it at all. But as I try to put myself in the perspective of a customer, they're asking for SEO, which they've only associated with website traffic. And as they see search changing, to them, SEO might be completely dead. They're looking for a service that's going to optimize them on AI, and the term SEO might actually be one that the customers don't see as somewhere they want to go. Like there's not a lot of traffic for the term SEO. I'm trying to think of exactly how to phrase this, but what are your thoughts on the fact that the customer might not see search engine optimization as what they're actually wanting anymore, even if it's still the baseline of what drives AI like visibility? If the question's clear, you're welcome to reword it if you need to, guys.
No, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So, I'll make sure of that. So, is SEO really dead if the consumer doesn't understand what SEO has become?
Correct.
Right? Is that not a fair assessment of what you're describing?
Yeah, almost more is like, is the term dead and needs to be reevaluated because customers don't understand? Yeah.
So I'm going to say no, right? Because I think if we chase the term, we become trendy, right? Up until a couple of years ago, TikTok was the primary source of a certain demographic finding information, right? And we're seeing the same trend in a different age demographic for ChatGPT, which is really weird, right? Because it's like older people who, like, I'm old enough to remember when they used to tell you, like, don't trust things on the internet. Now they go to ChatGPT and they'll get a medical prescription, right? They'll get a medical diagnosis. But I digress. That said, I think that there is you still have, so we're still talking search, right? Because someone is still searching for something. I think the root of it, now the way people understand it, sure, you naturally equate SEO to a website. But if we're talking SEO, this is literally how I describe it to people. Every social platform, everything has its own ecosystem of search, right? So we can optimize a thing for search, right? It's the reason why we save our files on our computer a certain way, because at some point we want to optimize them to be researched, right? We want to be able to search for grandpa's birthday, 47th birthday versus 107th birthday, right? Whatever. So the argument to me is education, right? So a lot of what I have made my life mission is to get people to understand that SEO is not smoke and mirrors, nor is it, I used to call it unicorn wrangling, right? Because that is the way people used to look at really all digital marketing. But I think the key is, and perhaps, I hope I'm answering the question, is to help people understand that SEO is vast, right? So even when we're talking about those generative things, where are they getting the information from? They're still going to get it from your website, because when you look at the Gemini results, there's a little link on there that tells you where they got the information from. Something I tell people, just as a side note, and I'm not saying it for you guys, I think we're all on the same page. I tell people to click those links because sometimes especially the generative AI answers on Google search, it's a close resemblance to what you're looking for, unless it's outright, right? When is Arnold Schwarzenegger's birthday? We can get that, right? When was the NBA founded? We can get that. But when you have terms that can mean more than one thing in a different industry, it'll give you a reference point, and you should click it to make sure that it's referencing the thing that you are, right? So again, I'll digress, but that would be my statement to it. Would just be, sure, SEO has evolved and changed. The way that consumers understand it, I would argue they still understand it as a website, at least the ones that we talk to. But the biggest part to that is just education, because no matter where you're referencing that information, they're getting it off of a website. AI is not creating answers. It is recycling them.
Yeah, they're citing those answers. So basically, yeah. So we've changed our copywriting strategy a little bit, and being more intentional about the structured data that we're using, the FAQs that we're using, and so all that information, just so they can get cited and show up in more places. So SEO absolutely is not dead. It's just different. It's evolving. It's not finalized.
That might be why we took the approach, because with the new AI SEO world, there's like AI VO, GEO, AI SEO. I mean, there's like 10 different terms, and none have been like picked as the winner yet. So we went with AI SEO as an evolution of it. Like, people understand SEO, it's familiar. AI is like, oh, there's an extra component to it that's kind of more forward thinking. So it feels familiar, but keeps the term SEO alive, because still it resonates with a lot of our clients who are not sophisticated digital marketers in many cases, but they know SEO. That's a broadly understood term. So we kind of piggyback on that to make it feel familiar. Now, that might not be the right approach, because I was team HD DVD back in the Blu-ray HD DVD. So I thought it was familiar. I'm like, go with what's familiar. So, but that's why we decided to go AI SEO.
I want to reference something else, old technology, right? So we have a 3D TV in my house. I sold cable back when 3D TVs and the technology was rolling out to consumers, right? So I sold cable. I sold packages that had 3D TV as an add-on, right? 3D channels. And what we quickly found out was there wasn't enough infrastructure to support that amount of data coming into your television. That's the reason why 3D TVs didn't really take, because there weren't enough channels and there wasn't enough infrastructure to be able to push that much data through at that time, right? And what we're currently seeing, without going too far off the rails is the thought of, do we have enough power to keep AI afloat, right? Because it takes a lot of processing power in order for us to get the answer to how to make General Chicken if we look inside of ChatGPT, right? Because we're not all asking the tough questions. We're being lazy too. That's the other part. That's really where I stand with all AI things. Is I think we're bought in a little bit too fast. Those who do not have any stock in AI do not think that AI has the infinite future that those who have a stock price attached to you believing it push it as. So, yeah.
I think it's like, any kind of technological evolution. Remember back with the browser wars and trying to design websites for Internet Explorer 6 and, oh my gosh, just years and years ago on all those browser wars. And it just, every evolution, it settles eventually. I just think everything is just happening faster now. The time between how things change just is rapidly accelerating.
And speaking of browsers, ChatGPT just released their Atlas browser. Yeah. Which it just uses Google. I don't know why anybody would use it, but whatever. But yeah, they're trying to get in that race too.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it, because most of what I've heard is it's just reskin ChatGPT. Is that not any different than just using the actual program itself?
I played around with it a little bit, and you put in a search. I actually expected ChatGPT results, and instead it just took me to a Google SERP page. And I was like, all right, I feel like there's no actual use case for this thing. So
Well, you guys have been a little ahead of me on the next question, actually, because it is AI. Is it signal or noise? And I'll transition the question just a bit, but to more on the deliverability side and not necessarily the customer perspective. Agencies are using AI, and there's been a interesting wave of, we're using every AI tool that's available to give you every data that you can. And then over the past 3 months, I'd say almost every one of those tools has been annihilated back to just their standards of like Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever tool they're using to collect the basic trend data. Where do you feel like you're actually getting the most value, or even from the customer's perspective? I'm going to change this a bit even more. Customers are maybe theming the thought that they can do a lot of it on their own, so they're trusting ChatGPT and these AI tools. Where do you feel like the biggest gap is between true strategy in digital marketing, which is often thinking outside the box, versus the AI strategies that are implementing standard best practices? How are you guys approaching the contrast on that with what your customers are asking for versus what you really think they need to deliver?
That's a good question. But, I think, just referencing back, when PowerPoint first came out, people were just going nuts, animations everywhere. You couldn't even make it through a presentation without some kind of motion sickness. I think we're kind of seeing some of that too right now with clients using, I can do this. I'll just use ChatGPT. We'll just do our own social media. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So this is a point where we can really, force ourselves just to be that voice of reason, voice of education, help them through this process. We've been posting a lot on social media about this, just talking about how to use. It's just a tool, and it's powerful, but in the wrong hands, you're just going to get a lot of garbage. It's not going to be as good because it's not from a standpoint of strategy and their voice and their message and what they're trying to accomplish. So they're trying to do this on their own without really knowing how to handle the tool. They're just garbage in, garbage out.
Would you go as far as disqualifying a customer if they were bringing in strategies from AI? Has anyone gone that far?
No, I wouldn't. I think real data speaks loudly. So when we can demonstrate, have a comparison of before and after, or use other customer testimonials, or just examples of work that we've done, and just to show them, again, it's the education, just helping them to navigate this and not shame them, but just say, that's a good approach. I love your enthusiasm and desire to do this on your own. It's your company, it's your baby. And so this is how we would approach things. So it's not like a harsh pushback. It's an educational teaching moment. So that's how we look at it.
And something that a lot of our clients don't understand, if they ever suggest, I'm just going to have ChatGPT write my blog posts for me. The rest of the digital world is trying to like weed through AI, and if they find it, then ignore it. So if you're writing a post on ChatGPT and that's your blog post, like that could actually hurt your rankings because it's recycled stuff. It's nothing original. It's not, original human thought. It's just, recycled information that's already out there. So it's going to actually, ding you for having that kind of recycled information on it.
So we have, so you two shook your head no. Would you turn a client away? We have a client currently, and so our process is we submit content, and the client has to approve it, right? Because we don't leave anything to them. I wouldn't let them write anything because then they never give it back. But this specific client, they have given their submission, like their return submissions, and they're very transparent about their use of ChatGPT, right? So like they're already 2 strikes in because if it happens again, we're gonna let them go because I'm not gonna argue with, like you said, with your recycled content that you like because you pressed the enter button, right? Because I don't know what kind of thought you put into your prompt. To go back around though, I think that again, some of the conversations that I try to have, whether it be through social posts or actual conversations, is the thought of using ChatGPT isn't the bad part, or Gemini, or any of these other tools. I think the thought process is allow it to expound on the thought, do not let it begin your thought, right? Because if it begins your thought, then you have recycled trash, right? Then it's garbage in, garbage out. But if you can come to a certain point in your writing or in your thought process, or even in that strategy that you're trying to put together before you talk to an agency, then take it to ChatGPT and see how that reference point or how that reference is. But I think that that's where the disconnect in the way an agency may use it versus just a layman on the street, right? Because they're using it as, I don't have to think anymore. I'll just tell it to write it, right? Whereas, we may use it in a completely different way. We use it to sharpen stuff, to sharpen content. It really just depends. I don't know that we use, not really ChatGPT or Gemini, but there are some other tools that have an AI style chatbot within them that we use for writing. The other, there was something else that you mentioned about AI. We always say ChatGPT, but there's Gemini, Perplexity, and some of these other ones that people use. There was something else that you mentioned in that question mark. I can't think of what it was now. I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's interesting that you guys talk about content. We actually see a pretty good contrast again between the companies that think that the cost savings and how good AI is writing content even now, with only the chance of it getting better, they need to fully adopt it and just learn to use it better than someone else so that their content doesn't look like the generic, I say garbage in, garbage out that can come out of it if they do. I think some teams adopted full AI writing teams and then had like one editor, or they've had one brainstormer that's sending everything into AI, and then whether it does all the editing and the content creation just based on their own creative strategy. There's that contrast in the content creation, which I think is interesting. Where I do think there's less contrast in the strategy is that authority is still an essential part of an SEO campaign. But where that authority comes from and what's actually valuable from an authority standpoint is something that's, again, widely discussed. And I want to hear from the three of you, where do you find the most value in authority building tactics for your customer? What are you doing today to try to generate, I call it trust, for your company through the different search engines?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like authority is more important than ever right now. As we go down the AI SEO route, AI may recommend your business in a conversation only if it trusts you. And then somebody clicks through to that, they're only going to reach out if you've built trust with them somehow. And having that authority is just, I feel like, is essential. So we've been trying to figure out which ones are the most impactful, what sources, and we found that any website that like lists the top 10 best XYZ, those listicles, if you can get cited in somebody else's listicle, that's really good. If you can show up in the most sought after review platform in your space, in the agency world, could be like a Clutch or something like that, but in every industry, there's some other review space out there that kind of evaluates different organizations. You want to show up there. You want them to recognize you. You want them to kind of say why you're one of the top ones. Because then people and AI can look out and say, wait, this person said they're great. That one said they're great. This one said they're great. There's this narrative forming throughout all the information I'm looking up that says this is the one that rises to the top. So trying to get out there in as many places as possible to build that authority, particularly Reddit and Quora right now as well, because they have direct feeds into ChatGPT data. If you're providing answers in those spaces, authority is just going to go up and up.
It reminds me of when we talk about SEO being dead and SEO not being the same. There was a point in time when you would spam message boards with your content. There were times where you would put stuff on Craigslist and stuff like that. That's what the Reddit and some of those other boards remind me of. It reminds me of that space where you spend more time digging in random message boards trying to answer questions in order to create that authority. So again, I think that comes full circle to the beginning of this conversation. It's not really dead; it just changes.
I like, Kevin, you mentioned it a little bit ago. When you're building websites, you make sure that structured data is done really, really well and FAQs are available. Speaking of things coming back around, I feel like FAQs was something everybody wanted 10 years ago. And then it was like, that content gets collapsed, it gets hidden, that's not going to be ranked or whatever. We kind of forgot about it. Blog posts are the thing. But when it comes to structured data and AI SEO on that side of things, FAQs are huge because that gives you a place to enter a direct question that might be very well related to a prompt people might ask. And you can have a direct response and you can position that business or your organization in that response in a particular way that's going to help tremendously. And then the structured data behind FAQs is rather easy. So that's important for AI to understand you well.
An interesting question of if there's ever enough FAQs on a website at that point. Like how many questions can you really answer and provide the right answer for?
You'd be surprised how many gaps there are in the information about your organization.
Yes.
There's always more information to give.
Yeah, I think people are a little bit too happy with I see a lot of a big trend because we don't build sites, right? So we inherit whatever everyone else has designed. Excuse me. So the trend that we see most recently is just one FAQ page, right? Whereas our school of thought is every service page or every product page should have an FAQ because they're all individual, right? And they usually have their own frequently asked questions as opposed to trying to stuff everything on one page. So I would agree with Andrew. I think people grossly undervalue how much people don't know about their business, product, or service.
I feel like that's like a golden nugget for us to share with the industry right there. Like FAQs for everything. Let's make sure this is happening. One thing I think is kind of fascinating here. The next question was about how cyclical SEO can be, which is funny because you guys have already touched on multiple aspects of it. I thought a little bit as you mentioned those listicles, because that's even a service that Stand Ventures provides, is like writing those listicles, review style articles, trying to find websites that have the right domain to post to, and even the right traffic and trending traffic patterns. And it's been seen and cited, I think, by a lot of LinkedIn SEO experts that I follow, that those are absolutely impacting things today. But I couldn't help but think about how that could be viewed as like the modern keyword stuffing strategy to a certain extent, which link building kind of does. Is there, I kind of battle this feeling and then again, I'm not fulfilling the work, so I'm asking questions that I think a customer might feel. I want to rank fast. Give me those. Just don't punish me if the strategy changes, and I'll blame you if it screws up. How do you guys feel about the listicle review style article link building strategy, which is proving very effective right now? But as everyone's writing their own reviews and basically telling everyone why they're the best, you're going to have 10 companies claiming they're the best at the same thing at one point, and then it becomes noise. What are your thoughts?
That's always been a problem. Everybody always says they're the best at, whatever it is they do. I think in our case, we always try and emphasize quality over quantity. You don't want to be in a lot of listicles. You want to be in the right ones. You want to be in the ones that are actually relevant to that industry, because that's going to go a long way. If you're just in random listicles out there, that's not really helping you. That's not building authority. But if it's like an industry publication that's mentioning you, or if you contributed to that with a guest article or something like that, now something like that's huge. So I would definitely encourage all my clients to invest in those quality placements rather than trying to get it to as many locations as possible.
I like that. That's something we see in the link building industry as well. Everyone's built their network of websites that they want you to link to, but whether or not it's really what your customers should be linking to and the quality is really established is the key to success, right? I think everyone has a different definition for what that authority is. What we've seen is every agency themselves. If I asked the three of you guys what your expectations were for your own link building efforts, we'd probably have some very different or wide variety. There's an overall theme, needs to be relevant, needs to be credible, and needs to be like locationally relevant. I think is also a big thing, but that's kind of a fun contrast. We're actually about out of time, which is good. We only had that was I think that last question. We probably could spend some more time on it, but we'll wrap it up here. Kevin, Wendell, and Andrew, guys, this has been really good. I really appreciate your time and thank you for being guests on SEO On Air.